Let's bring in Seth Davis, CBS Sports college basketball analyst, and has a new book, Getting to Us, How Great Coaches Make Great Teams. Comes out later on today. Seth, thanks for joining us. Good morning. I'm just trying to make sense of all of this with one and dones. If we raise the age to now 18 and a half, or, where are we headed with college basketball when it comes to this one and done?
Well, let's keep in mind that this is not, first of all, there's not a college basketball rule,
Yes.
right? This is between the NBA owners and the Players Association. That's first of all. Second of all, I kind of laugh when people say, well, one and done is bad for college basketball. Let's remember, before there was one and done, there was none and done.
Yep.
So is college basketball better off with DeAndre Ayton and Marvin Bagley playing in college or playing in the NBA right now? So from a marketing and business standpoint, it's been a huge boon for college basketball. I personally, Dan, feel like if the Boston Celtics want to draft a 13-year-old kid and pay him $5 million, I'm totally fine with it. Like, I got no problem raising my own kids. I think there should be, an open market, and there should be no age minimum whatsoever. But however that plays out, I encourage people to separate that from what's going on with the FBI, because this has absolutely nothing to do with one and done. One and done applies to maybe 3 or 4 kids every year. You're telling me if kids can go to the league, the ones who go to college are going to turn down money from agents and boosters? So there's a lot going on there, but I think the one and done, to me, I'd just get rid of it and let them leave when they want to leave. It doesn't bother me in the slightest.
We thought college basketball was going to come down crashing here a week ago with what's happened with Arizona and Sean Miller and the wiretap and payments. And, Rick Pitino paid the price, but where do we stand with this investigation?
Well, Rick Pitino paid the price partly because of what's already gone on at Louisville. So I think, in this isolated case, would he or would he have not been fired? I guess we'll never know. But listen, Dan, this case is going to take 1 to 2 years to play itself out.
Oh, no.
And so we're getting certain leaks and pieces of information through the media. We don't have nearly enough information to really know. It's obviously not good. And I think the important thing is, it's disappointing to me that it takes a crisis to create some change that should have been created a long time ago. But there does seem to be some momentum through this commission that Mark Emmert has put together that we can open up the agent area, maybe open up the marketing area and a lot of other things. But as far as the apocalypse coming, let's let the facts dictate that as opposed to the speculation based on a couple of bits and pieces of information when there's a lot more information to come out.
I want to play this Tubby Smith rant, and I want to get your thoughts on this. So, Seton, if you'll play that.
With the new NCAA regulations and guys can transfer when they want. I've been in this business a long time. Never seen we had over 800 Division I players transfer last year. Over 800. Teach them how to quit. That's what we're doing. Things not going well, let's quit. I remember calling my dad when I was a freshman. Dad, people not treating, I'm this and that. I'm unhappy here. I was one of 2 blacks in the whole school. They said, son, somebody do something to you now. You're still getting your scholarship, aren't you? They still feeding you. They still housing you. You still getting education. I said, yes, sir. So you can't come home. Your bed's been taken, but you can join the Army. Best thing he ever said to me. Somebody need to tell him that, hey, you made a commitment. Stick to it. But it doesn't happen that way. They got a lot of people in the ear. That's the way life is.
Like Tubby Smith, who's the Memphis head coach, what do you make of these comments?
I think there's a lot of truth to it. It's something that I struggle with as a parent. The problem is, especially in the basketball culture and the grassroots culture, is this type of attitude is in place long before they get there. The kids are changing high schools. It's very unusual, Dan. If you took the top 50 recruits, that any of them would only be in one high school. Now, part of it is because they're in a certain school and they find a prep school that's better for them, so it can be a good thing. But then if you go down to their AAU team, which is really where all the action is, they're switching every other week. I see it. My kids, obviously, because they have my genetics, they're not going to be Division I athletes, but they all play club soccer. And there's all kinds of switching around teams because parents aren't happy. So I will say this, though. I think that, and it's similar to what I said about one and done. I do think there is a positive in kids having opportunities. If a kid is in a situation where he's not getting playing time, or he's in a situation where he's not happy with the coach for very valid reasons, for them to have those opportunities for change. I like opportunity, but I completely agree with the sentiment that, kids aren't sticking out difficult situations. And by the way, that's not limited just to college basketball. that's very pervasive in society. But it certainly resonated with me as a fan, someone who covers the sport, and definitely as a parent.
Yeah, you know what bothered me about that is Tubby Smith didn't make any mention of coaching situations. He's had 6 different jobs. Has he taken a job? Has he bolted to a new job? Why didn't he stick it out? Did he honor his contract every single time? You know, these coaches do this as well. Why is it that it's always the kids who make the mistakes and it's never the grown-ups here?
Yeah, I completely agree with that, and that's the whole bemoaning of the transfer thing. Comes across as very old school. And then what I really don't like is when you may disagree with a young man's decision to transfer, or you may not like it, but the fact that schools have the ability to not release kids to certain schools, whether it's inside their own conferences, or they'll say if somebody's on our schedule, you can't play there. You see coaches abusing that all the time. So, no, I think you make a great point with that. I'm personally not in favor of open season transferring where they don't have to sit out. I think if you transfer, you got to sit out a year. But if you want to transfer somewhere, you should be able to go wherever you want.
You got a new book, How Great Coaches Make Great Teams. It's called Getting to Us. What was the reasoning behind doing this book?
I'd spent so much time with coaches over the years as a long-form writer. Coaches make for great characters because they're brilliant, they're intelligent, they're driven, and they're absolutely tortured. So I was able to find 9 coaches, 6 in basketball and 3 in football. So my 6 basketball coaches are Mike Krzyzewski, Jim Boeheim, Gino Auriemma, Tom Izzo, Doc Rivers, and Brad Stevens. And then in football, Jim Harbaugh, Urban Meyer, and Dabo Swinney. I wrote 9 long chapters about them, got great access to them, their wives, their families, their players, and colleagues, and really tried to break down how they develop their personal qualities that make them great leaders, how they coach their teams, why their teams win, the common threads, and then the uncommon threads. Obviously, 9 very different personalities in that book, and there are a lot of different ways to lead. So it really becomes, a character psychological study as much as it is a breakdown on leadership. So it was a lot of fun, and it's out today, and I can't imagine a better way to promote this book than being on with Dan Patrick.
Before I let you go, I wanted to ask you about, and not that we get caught up in this, but you work for CBS. There's no that it guy that you want to see in this tournament. I mean, if Trae Young, maybe, but that's kind of cooled off. There's no that it team that you want to see that's great. How much of a concern do you think that is for the networks as we go into this tournament? I know we get caught up in the madness here, but you don't have that player and you don't have that team.
Very true on both counts, but I think if you look at the history of the tournament, it's probably more common than you might realize, certainly from the perspective of the team. Like I hear that every year, well, there's no dominant team this year. Well, it's actually the exception when there is a dominant team. And I think the great thing about the tournament, and I'm shilling obviously, but I'm not just shilling because I'm a fan first, is I remember Bob Ryan saying this one time. He really hit it on the head. The NCAA tournament doesn't need stars because the NCAA tournament creates stars. So it's those moments that you don't expect to happen. Listen, a lot of these games are snoozers, right? I watch them all. They're not all scintillating games. But in the course of the 67 games being played, there's going to be 5 or 6 of them that are the kind of epic games that you're going to be talking about for decades, really. So that's why we watch. The tournament, nothing is perfect, but I think the tournament is about as bulletproof as it gets in terms of an entertainment sporting event.
He's Seth Davis. The book is Getting to Us, How Great Coaches Make Great Teams, comes out today. Seth, thanks for joining us. We'll talk to you during the tournament.
Love you, Dan.
Thank you, bud. That's Seth Davis. Mercedes-AMG driver's seat brings you Seth Davis, 2018 Mercedes-AMG E-Class. With a suite of innovative technologies, it's one of the most intelligent cars on the road. Go to MBUSA.com or visit your local dealership to schedule your test drive today.
For more Dan Patrick Show, tune to Audience Channel 239 on DirecTV or download the Dan Patrick Show app.